Hello, this is Deborah Anderson, the Black Woman Animator. Come back to you with another video. And in this video, I have Aaron Brewer. Welcome.
Yo, yo, yo.
Can you introduce yourself?
Yes, I am Aaron Brewer. I am a director, storyboard artist, animator, sheet timer. Um, sheesh. Yeah, that's me in this industry. That's what I do. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. And all those labels are on his IMDb, I can confirm.
I hope so. Yeah. Shit. Jesus.
So, you're from the Mitchellville Bowie area. How was it growing up?
Um, Black. It was really looking back now that I'm removed from it. Really cool.
A privilege.
Yeah, for sure, a very unique experience.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a pretty affluent Black county. PG County is like the
Mm-hmm.
thing. You'll hear that around. PG County is like we
Mm-hmm.
rep it hard.
Yeah. Yes, y'all do.
And, so yeah, so like it was predominantly Black. There was a mixture of folks. There was some white folks and Asian folks and stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
predominantly Black. And uh, I remember in sixth grade, the family we took a trip to Disney
Mm-hmm.
World in Florida, and I had culture shock because I was like, where are all the Black people? And my mom was like, this is how the world really is. There's not that many. I just really hadn't had that experience, and then from there, my parents like they shipped me off to different places, just so I got a bit more exposure to
Yeah.
life outside of PG County.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, it was yeah, no, I mean you know, normal family life. I'm the oldest of two. I mean, sorry, three. I'm the oldest of three. I have two younger sisters.
Yeah.
We lived in like one of those like neighborhoods with like a cul-de-sac, and we
Mm-hmm.
had, we were in the back of the neighborhood, one way into the neighborhood, one way out of the neighborhood. We had a stop sign at the end of our block. I wasn't allowed to go past the stop sign.
Mm-hmm.
We had a bunch of kids on our block. I used to go and knock on their doors, like, can they come out? And then, we would, just, wreak havoc on one block.
Yeah.
Um, one kid had the basketball court, one kid had the video games, one kid had the really, really nice large backyard so we can do football games.
Right.
That was basically my childhood experience growing up. So yeah.
Were you a backflip kid?
Yes, I was. Uh, I don't know how I came up, but yeah. So shit. When I was, okay, when I was a baby, and I had an uncle
Mm-hmm.
who was in love with martial arts films, and
Mm-hmm.
so my mom used to drop me off over there from an early age, and like mid Pampers. And so
Mm-hmm.
when I would be over there, he would sit me down in front of the TV with him, and we would just sit there and watch, kung fu movies. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's something that I don't know how or why, but it stuck with me. And so by the age of two, I was doing perfect cartwheels apparently,
Nice.
and then from there, I was just flipping. I was going like there would also kids in the neighborhood would do it too, and it was something that we just had fun with, and we would like climb on like top of things and do flips off of them.
Mm-hmm.
Then my parents put me into martial arts when I was 7, and so from 7 to 18, I did kung fu.
Nice.
Just to kind of they kind of channeled it. They was like, all right, stick this right here. Just put all this energy into that.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, so I did. So I'm a kung fu fanatic. Growing up, just between the
Mm-hmm.
films and actually practicing it. It was a big part of my life growing up, and,
Mm-hmm.
and I got my first black belt in kung fu in sixth grade,
Nice.
and then in eighth grade, I went to with school like organized a trip to China, and so we were
Mm-hmm.
in China for a month, and we trained with the Beijing wushu team, and so that was
Mm-hmm.
insane.
Mm-hmm.
Another kind of like cultural moment where like, oh shit, the world's bigger than
Yeah.
PT County, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then shit, ninth grade I got my second degree black belt, and then I started playing other sports and a bunch of other hobbies kind of like trickled in, so it wasn't as
Mm-hmm.
like focused on it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I feel like Black boys backflipping is the Black experience, so that's why I asked you.
Really? I guess it is. Yeah.
Yes, and
Yeah.
because they did it when I lived in New Orleans. Like I tried, but I couldn't. And then martial arts is very part of the Black American experience too. So
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. It was
particularly in
like
the 80s and
the 70s, the 80s, the films and stuff like that. Yeah, it just felt like I was just watching a documentary about that too, and it was how at least the guys that they interviewed, they were talking about, there's seeing Asian guys on screen, kicking ass, and they were like, it's somebody other than white guys doing it, and they were like, oh, this is great, and it felt something akin to that, and I think also with I think his name's Jim Kelly from from the Bruce Lee film Enter the Dragon. So I think seeing him on screen kicking ass and stuff, I was like, oh, we could do this too. And
so what are all the sports you played? And were you good?
Yeah. I a lot of a lot of stuff came naturally.
There's a difference.
There is a difference. I was a pretty naturally athletic kid. I just took this stuff really quickly, physically. And I would say that a lot of that translated into my work, just really understanding how the body works and all that stuff. But so I played soccer at one point. I played football for one season. I was like, this ain't for me. I prefer it in the backyards or in the schoolyards, but not with pads. No.
Right.
I got my bell rung once, and I was like, this shit is not cool. So I never really played basketball for a team. It was just always a neighborhood thing. In high school, track was my sport. My dad ran track, so he kind of got me into it. So I ran track all throughout high school. So the freshman year, I came in I got something to prove, and so I busted ass freshman year. But the level of exertion needed to improve just made me throw up all the time, and so I just, this is for me. So I just kind of plateaued hard. So it was hard to kind of keep that motivation and that drive once I realized I could do this, but to keep getting better at this, I'm gonna have to really take myself to another level that I'm not comfortable doing on a regular basis. But it was fun though. I mean, it made it fun. And the whole experience was great. But so track, I think those were all the sports. I also did music too. So that was my dad's side. My mom played the clarinet and French, and those were things that she carried from her school experience. So in elementary school, we started learning foreign languages early. So in 5th grade. So French was either French or Spanish, and so did French, and so I did French all the way. And then in middle school, she played the clarinet in high school. So she put me into music, and so I started playing the clarinet in 7th grade. And then she did marching band in high school. So in high school, I did marching band too. I did that for 2 years. And then I switched over to piano. I did that for the last 2 years in high school. So
nice.
So, pretty well-rounded. I did all the things, man. And then during the summer, I would do gymnastics. I would do swimming. I would did horseback riding.
Nice.
Yeah, so they exposed me to a lot, which was great. So I got an experience of trying a lot of different things. And just seeing people that are really good at a lot of those different things too, so that was really helpful and cool, and something I look back on. I'm really thankful that I had those experiences.
I saw you tweet last year that you were getting back to French. How's that going?
It's been going good. Because I've been I had an excuse. I've been wanting to get into foreign language, wanting to know more languages, and but I just never had did it, just get up and do it. And so I found some this website where they have tutors. They have a list of tutors, and so I was able to find one that kind of we meshed well, and then I started taking lessons, and that was great. And so that's been good, and been kind of good to get back into it. I have an app as well. I've been using Duolingo.
Yeah.
And so I've been doing that to kind of refresh myself. But then also with the tutor, it's like we're having conversations and like practicing, and it's so it's like good to kind of like, and it's almost like I compare it to being like in therapy, because like there's a level of vulnerability you have to have when you're just like trying and fucking up like constantly. You know, and she just smiles and just like, nope, this is where you said it wrong, and she'll type it out for me. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'll say half a sentence in French and then half in English, and but yeah, and it's weird because I have a lot of French people in my life. I feel it's kind of abnormal, but but like I know you interviewed Kimson, and Kimson's like a really good friend. Yeah, and so like he speaks French fluently, and it's like it's just really weird. So yeah, I feel like the universe is telling me that like this is start with French, and then we'll move on to, once you get that, we'll move on to something else. So
how did you use like, you know, the martial arts, and then did you dance too, or?
I like to dance.
Like to dance. Okay.
I didn't like do it professionally. Or like not professionally, like, you know, as a hobby. You know, I think, you know, when I got into college, I really got into dancing. I found there was a breakdancing like
nice
group
crew
that was like around. Like I would kind of like get in with them, and but like there was one kid in high school who knew how to break dance, but I just wasn't really friends with him, so I couldn't like bridge that gap. Like I definitely wanted to learn, but I didn't have access. This is before YouTube, guys, so like, I didn't have that access to like, you know, a dearth of people. Just, you know, this is how you do it. You know,
right?
Like, you know, I used to, like, you'd have to go to a designated place and find like a VHS, and you know, and rewind it and play it, you know. But so yeah, so I didn't really get into dancing until college. But in terms of like just understanding like just how the body moves, and just, you know, from playing all the sports and doing martial arts, particularly martial arts, because with wushu, wushu is almost like dancing. It's like it's really choreographed. It's really like the movements are really precise, and the speed and the flow of everything is really particular. And so, you know, you're flowing, and then wow, you hit a pose, right? And like you hit the pose, and then they would tell the class to freeze, and he would come around and like adjust your fist so that, you know, it's like my camera's like, so this like this, you know, and then you like this, you know, and he would do that for every single pose, you know, and then we do it all over again. So there was just, you know, as you're holding it, you're really like realizing what's flexing, what's tired, what's, you know, what's tight, and so just something that I internalized, you know, and also just playing football and in the neighborhood and doing backflips, knowing how to like rotate my body, you know, and the exertion required to do that.
I could never figure that out.
It was like it was an evolution.
Cartwheel, but I'm like,
There was an evolution to it, you know. It started with like you know, hanging off the monkey bars, you know, and then just like with your hands, and then just kind of flipping over, and then doing without your hands, you know, just your legs. The camera again, like your legs like this, and you're swinging, and then you flip, you know, like that. And then like you get used to that rotation motion, right? And then you do it on the ground, and you kind of like do it to the side, you know. Right, and then now after you get good at that, you just do it once, you know, and it's like, oh shit, I did it. And then you know, you get really good at it, and then you accidentally do it without hands one time. And I was like, oh shit, I just did it without hands. And then, you know, it evolves. And then after that, you're doing it off of stuff. You're doing it off of cable boxes. You're doing it off of like cars. You're doing it off, you know, it's like, go back to those monkey bars. Do it off the monkey bars. But yeah, so understanding that stuff, I didn't realize it until when I decided to go into animation, which was in high school. Throughout all of that, I had done a bunch of different things, and I was good at a lot of different things, but I couldn't picture myself doing any of that stuff for the rest of my life. I didn't know what I was getting, all the, you know, the brochures and the mail from all the colleges, and you know, it's a really good school for engineering. It's a really good school for whatever the fuck, and and none of it appealed to me. I couldn't picture myself doing those things for the rest of my life. And also I had my mom, and my mom, both my parents were engineers. and my mom wanted to be in the medical field, but she thought it was gonna be too hard, so she went into engineering, which is like hard too. So, but she hated her job, and so you know, she used to get up at the crack of dawn, and we used to get up early, and she was always gone before us, and you know, go to work, go through traffic, you know, Beltway, PG County traffic is fucking nuts. And a job that she hated doing, and then you know, traffic all the way back home, and so that sucked. I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. So, and I equated it to going to high school. Like the high school was fine, but like it wasn't like something I look forward to doing. And so I was like, I can't go to high school for the rest. You know, like that feeling of getting up, like, oh shit, here comes Monday. So, you know, I had to do some social, like 11th grade. I'm like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And then so we grew up watching. I mean, I watched everything. My mom loved musicals, so I watched a lot of musicals. You know, kung fu stuff. Whatever I could get my hands on, I would watch. And we also had a lot of Disney stuff on VHS. And for whatever reason, we got Tarzan on DVD, like a double disc joint with the behind the scenes features. And I was watching that. I don't know why. I guess because I'd seen the movie so many damn times. So I just decided to watch the behind the scenes stuff. And Glenn Keane was on there talking about animating and just, you know, how he researched it and what he had to do, and you know, and just like drawing it and studying and drawing. And you know, I think he was talking about like the moment where like his feet are zigzagging on the branches, and how he watched some rollerblader doing that, and that was like his inspiration for it. And so he kind of watched that, and then he draw it, and he watched. I was like, oh shit, that's a thing people do, you know. And I also that's like completely missed that point, but also throughout all of this, I was drawing. Like it was, you know, but it was just another one of those things I did. You know, it wasn't anything special, but it was. There was always somebody around me who could draw, or at least draw better than me. So I would like kind of peek over their shoulder and like, what are you doing? How did you do that? And so I would kind of like incrementally get better. That way, I didn't read a ton of comics. I noticed a lot of your interviews, folks like grew up like loving comics and cartoons. That wasn't like I watched some of the stuff. But it was like periphery, you know, like Saturday morning. You know, like I would maybe spend like 2 hours in the house, but then after that, I was outside running around flipping off the shit. So you know, but drawing was always something that I did on the side, and it was something I could do and lose track of time doing. So I would draw and get lost in the drawing and focusing on trying to make it good, and just kind of go into like this Zen space. And you know, and then 4 hours later, I'm looking up like, oh shit, you know, it's been 4 hours, it's dark, and I like it, you know, and so yeah, and I didn't take any art classes really. In spite like all the other things, horseback riding, you know, all the other things I did, but I didn't take any art classes. And so I think I had art history in 10th grade, and that was the only thing. I got a chance to kind of like draw for all of my projects, and that was great. And so that was my one art teacher prior to my senior year. So 11th grade comes around, I'm like, I see that video, I'm like, oh, animation, people draw. I like entertaining, I like stories, love stories. You know, I was like, oh, this is a good way to combine, you know, the two things. And so I had a sketchbook just of a few things that I would just draw, you know, randomly. I used to draw a lot of other things. I never created characters. I'd always draw the space that I was in. So I'm one of those weird people that likes actually doing layout. Like I can draw the room, you know, and like everything in like relationship to the other. So I had a sketchbook, and so my senior year, there's like AP art. So I was like, okay, if I could do AP art, then I had done most of my like credits. I had already taken care of most of my academic credits. I just needed English and history. I think I had to take that 4 years, but everything else was open. So I could do AP art I had 4 classes a day. So I can do AP art my third class, and then my fourth would be art 2. Just because I needed just to fill in, I needed to build stuff, right? And so I had for AP art, you needed to have taken at least 2 art classes in your high school, you know, whatever. I hadn't, I only taken 1, but I got my art history teacher to vouch for me, and
Mhm.
talking to the AP teacher, and she was like, okay, cool. So she brought me in. And then so we spent the year just kind of like learning stuff and also building a bunch of pieces that kind of, for me, it was all for my portfolio. And so
Yeah.
like all the stuff that we did for the year kind of had to fit a theme. And so mine was
Mhm.
motion. So I would pick all of these different things like swinging, like somebody on a swing, and just like the different, phases of it, or somebody bowling. And so like, starting that from pose 1 all the way to the end and how the wind up and all that shit happens. There's a lot of like things like that to kind of like focus, to talk about movement and focus on movement and get better at drawing the figure, but also so that, I could do animation, even though I've never done it before. So yeah, and then I also had to find a school that was teaching animation, and so I did a bunch of research. I think we went to a couple of conventions, or like one of those like college conventions where they would all be in one place, kind of walk around and ask questions. And so I think, God, I can't remember all the schools I applied to. SVA was one. I think RIT was another.
Oh, that's where I went.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Nice.
Because they didn't require a portfolio, so I was like, "Yep, easy way."
Excuse me. I think Ringling was on there, but I all they had was 3D, and I was really focused on 2D because I wanted to draw. That's the whole point of all of this, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think there was a school I didn't even know about. What's the big school out here?
Cal Arts.
Cal Arts, yeah, I didn't know about Cal Arts. Like, and I didn't realize that all the Disney guys had gone to Cal Arts. That Cal Arts was basically like the G Leagues for Disney. Or
You're right.
It was a training for them to just pluck people out. I didn't have no
right.
idea. And there was another school in like it was like an art institute, and it was in Southern California, and it was just one building on like a highway by a beach, and I think it was
that like Laguna or
something like that. Yeah, I think so. And so I applied to all of those schools. I got in to all of those schools. We went out to came out to California to check out that school, and we realized that it wasn't really much of an infrastructure there. It was just basically a building, and so you'd have to live in town, and
it kind of sucks that you visited and then nobody was like, but try Cal State or Cal Arts.
Nobody told me. Nobody told me at all. But it was a blessing because one, New York was on the East Coast, so I could still be with family. I could still come home regularly. And then New York was an experience in itself. Like, I wouldn't be who I am without like having like traversed that gauntlet and survived.
Yeah.
So, and also there was a where it feels like at the time Cal Arts was producing a lot. They were producing Disney people. Like there was like a very specific aesthetic to the styles that were coming out of the school at the time. And where in New York, it was very much independent. It was like filmmakers. It was like a, explore, try different things. And it was a lot of commercial houses in addition to a few production houses. So there was a lot of different styles of animation like going on at the time. So like, you didn't fit necessarily in a box. So that was cool. So like it makes you versatile.
Yeah.
So yeah, we chose SVA. It was expensive as hell, but it was really good. It was a really good experience, and it was a good choice, I think.
Yeah, one way I'm happy to be Black is that you just said the G League of animation. Like that is good. That is accurate. Like
the minor league, basically. It was just basically you just stay here until you're ready, and then we'll be circling around like sharks, and then whenever we see one that's right, we'll just like bloop, come here. So
you kind of went into this too, but what is your like cultural makeup? And that's not only to say what's your ethnicity, but what is the culture where you grew up and the uniqueness of where you're from?
Black. Like, It's black. It's black. Like I don't even know how else to describe it. It's just black.
Right.
I mean, all the stuff you say about the black folks. I guess we it's all there. I don't know, like big family. We have a lot of women in our family. A lot of strong vocal Black women in our family. They hold court in the kitchen. We have like a really big table in there. So they're drinking and cackling and telling stories and dragging the kids in every once in a while just to retell a story to back up.
Or do that little dance.
Yeah, exactly. Or they're wrestling, or it's just like it was. Then the men folk are just quietly watching sports in the other room, or sleep, or out in the back smoking a cigar, just calmly, just taking a break. So we have my dad has he's one of 7, and then my mom is one of 2, but her mother was one of 14, so she has a bunch of first cousins, and they all have kids. So her and her first cousins grew up, they were tight, and they grew up they were all in either New York, Jersey, Virginia, I think maybe North Carolina as well. And growing up, we would travel to to different houses, and then sometimes we would congregate for some of the bigger holidays at one of the houses. And so I played with a lot of my second cousins, growing up with a lot of them. And so like we're it's a really tight knit, family. We had the family reunions, we used to do them every year in Baltimore. It'd be hot as fuck, but and it was always like the other half of the table, the other half of the, like it was like we had a table under like the big awning or whatever, and there's always like the other half that we didn't know because they're from like Indiana or some state that's far away, and so we'd only see them once a year. It was just when you hear that song family and you see the visuals, that's basically that was our family, and so definitely a big part of who I am, and just looking back, like all of that stuff, just I have people in the family who are good storytellers that kind of like whenever they would tell a story, you're just like you're on the edge of your seat, and it's just so fucking funny, when they hit the punchline. It's just so natural to them, and so and also I was the oldest, and I was also the only boy, so I had older male cousins that I would see on occasion, and so I would gleam at like what's down the road, like, oh, that's cool, oh, I hope so. That kind of stuff, so there was just that was my life growing up, and I guess that's my culture, just a really big tight-knit family.
Nice. Were your parents supportive of your artistic interests?
Yes, I think there was a little shock. I was really good at math. That was my thing, and like I did calculus.
Math good,
I did in like 11th grade.
I'm like, man, if I can't, like, when I can get a kid at like polynomials, like, let me help you with your homework. I'm like not afraid to help my child with their homework.
I haven't heard that word in like a decade, yo. No joke.
Let me read this so I can help you.
Polynomials, wow. Yes, they were good at it. I was good at it. Which is interesting because I didn't really like lit, but now I like telling stories. So it's weird how that happens. But the but I was like, what am I gonna do with math? Like I don't want to be an accountant. Like I that's as far as I knew math could take me. So but like I said, we went back to just thinking about what I can do, what I'd lose track of time doing, what I really enjoyed, like putting in the work. Because like I said, a lot of things came natural to me. And so there were only a couple of things in my life that I could sit down and struggle with and stick to it and be satisfied when I successfully did it. So music was another one. So like I could sit down and just like play the same shit over and over again and over and over again until I got it right. Because when it sounded right, it was just like, oh, that's so satisfying. Right?
Yeah.
So, but drawing too. Drawing was the same thing. So but when I did it, I told them I was going to do it. They're like, all right, you know, like the phase, whatever. But I put the work in. You know, I found the schools. Who's teaching? You know, what do they require? What do I need to do to build? I need a portfolio. Okay, when are portfolios due? You know, like I was doing the work, which is something they didn't normally see in me. You know, it was like I just kind of like skated by, but they actually, oh, this dude's actually serious about this shit. All right, so I guess we need to be serious. And then, you know, I remember on a few occasions my mom asking just like my art teachers, like, is this stuff good? Is he gonna be okay? You know, like they were worried about that starving artist. You know, they keep talking about that too. Like, you know, my mom even to this day, I've been doing this for like 15 years, and she's still like. Like, I still want to ask you if you're working, but I just don't. I'm too scared to ask. So I just assume that you haven't asked for money, so everything is good. You know, but it was definitely. And in the beginning, you know, it's always rough in the beginning of a career.
Yeah.
Right? So they were supportive. I think nervous is a good way to describe how they felt about it, but they were definitely supportive. They weren't like, no, you can't do this. They were supportive.
Like when you went to, SVA and stuff like that, you were talking about like your experience, like using like Lightbox and Lunchbox, and so
Oh shit! That is the exact joint we had in class. That is dope.
So this is one of those things where you're like, I had the money and then I went to eBay and purchased it, and I'm like, why the fuck did I do that? Like why? Like I tried to sell it before I came to LA, and then that's like one of the few things I could not sell. But I'm like, maybe I just have it as a museum piece at this point.
Fuck yeah, this is dope. I'll take it off your hands if you don't want it. Look, if you ever get to a place where you're like, man, I don't. This is just taking up like dust and fucking with my feng shui. I will take it off your hands. I got you.
So I remember you used it because you were mentioning you were using it for like 2D, but my classes we mostly used it for stop motion classes. Because like I had to have one 2D class in college, and I belabored that for as long as possible and did BS my way through it. And then like when I went to Korea and was like, the overseas director for Cleveland show was a black man, so I would like go visit him all the time, and I'm like watching him draw like, 2D, and I'm just like, I'm not a 2D. Like this is inspirational, but I don't want to actually do it.
I feel you.
Totally.
So like, what was the experience of like finally learning 2D in like college?
Yeah. So it was a whirlwind of a senior year, right? Just figuring all that stuff out, getting up to speed on like that, and then getting in, and then day one, I can't thank the animation gods enough for giving me my teacher freshman year was Matt Sheridan, and he taught at a couple of different schools. He taught at NYU and he taught at Pratt as well. I think he went to NYU. He was a classmate of Kimpson's actually.
Nice. And
so he broke animation down in a way that was really digestible. And for me at least, it was perfect for me. Just to kind of how to like there's a process to approaching this stuff, first year it's all basic shit. It's like bouncing balls, it's walk cycles, it's like how to do weight, how to do lip sync, how to do all of these really basic things. And in the way he described some of that stuff and how he explained some of that stuff was really digestible for me. We also had figured it was 6-hour class. It was the first day of school too, right? So 6-hour class, the first half of the class was figure drawing. And so he would have us draw the figure using only circles. He would have us draw the figure using only squares, and he would have us draw the figure using only 8 triangles. And so that was like an exercise to kind of get us out of our comfort zones, but also to kind of think about, just the bigger shapes and and understanding the figure that way. But then he gave us a quick, felt like remedial crash course on how to use that lunchbox.
Yeah.
The camera setup works, yada 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 yada, and then he was like, "All right, boom. So here's your homework. Go home, do a transformation, animate a transformation between 3 objects.
Mm-hmm.
One into the second, second into the third back into the first, and no less than 75 drawings."
Mm-hmm.
Like 75 drawings? Jesus Christ! And so, I had our dorm room was so damn small, and so I had like a light box I still have to this day. My wife has been using it, and I would sit on my bed, and I was like, just 75. I had to go get paper from from like Kinko's or whatever, like Office Depot or whatever, and then I had to go back to the school, punch it. It showed us a hole puncher. You can only do 5 pages at a time, otherwise you'd break it. So you're punching for like 20 minutes, and then you go home, and then you get the all of the pegboard. I think they might have given us a pegboard. But yeah, just throw you right into the deep end. Just figure it out, and which is great. Just you learn by doing. Yeah. And so I think I'd actually done a flip book once in like when I was bored in like algebra class or something like that. I had like taken my composition book and in the corner flip through and did like a flip book. So I kind of had some animation experience, but so I it threw me right in. But I was also in class. So what happens is you would do the lunchbox, right? You record you would animate all your drawings. You bring your drawings in, plop them down underneath the camera, shine a light through it, get check the focus on the camera, and then use the lunchbox to record it and have it play back, put it on VHS, and then we'd have a critique during our class. And so I remember watching it all back. I was pretty satisfied. I was happy with what I did. I was like, this is pretty good. This is really dope. Like, this is moving. It's animating, right? And then I had fucking Ian Jones-Cordy in my class. And his shit was like, you've been animating since you came out of the womb. Like, what is this? Like, good God, So I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, this guy's for real. And he was also black. It was like, when I came to class, as a black person, you kind of size up the room, right? It's like, okay, a brown person, 2 brown. We got some brown people in here. All right, this is gonna be all right. We're gonna be good. And then I see his work. I'm like, well, fucking hey, man. So he was amazing. I had another dude, Danny Hines, and he could just draw his ass off. Like both of them were just like still really good friends of mine. But like day one, I was like, sizing it up the room, and I'm like, these dudes are nuts. Like, so there was like a sense of, if I'm gonna be in this world with these guys, I'm gonna have to like bust my ass to kind of like stay afloat, and with these dudes. So
this part is where I list your projects, so we can know, some of the stuff we watch Black people worked on it. I'm not gonna list everything, but we gotta mention like Weird Al Yankovic, Close But No Cigar.
Yeah, I was looking at that. I was like, I don't know, did I do that? Like, it doesn't. I don't think I did that. Like, because it's like 2006, right? Or 2007. Like, yeah, in 2006, I was doing my thesis in college. So, I don't. Like I might have. Like, somebody might have like, hey, can you do this one scene? But I don't. It's not something that sticks out in my memory at all. Yeah. I think back to that time period and where I was in life and what I was trying to do. That project does not stick out at all. What sucks is I was a Weird Al fan. I was a huge
right.
Yeah. So. Sure.
Well, I definitely know you worked on Wonder Pets, which Wonder Pets is awesome. Eureka, Motor City, which is where I'm from. Hot in Cleveland. The Venture Brothers, Blue Hilda, OK KO, Let's Be Heroes, Nico and the Sword of Light, Victor and Valentino, Thundercats Roar, Steven Universe, Deathstroke Knights and Dragons, the movie, Adventure Time, Distant Lands, Amphibia, Rugrats, Transformers Earth Spark? Are there any? I mean, there's more on the list, obviously, but are there any more that you want to mention?
I did animation for a short, a documentary short called Stay Close that got into Sundance, which was a surprise to all of us involved. And like that's where I met Lyndon. And so that was and that was an experience that I kind of just wasn't expecting. You know, I met the director of that film through a friend of a friend, you know, and he, you know, being in New York and meeting people who don't work in animation, you find a lot of people like, oh, I love animation. I want to do something animated. You know, like let's do something. You know, how much would it cost to do this? And I'm like, you know, start giving them the real numbers, and they usually back away. You know,
yeah,
like, oh, that's expensive.
Yes,
you know,
it is.
And they just fade into the bushes. You never see them again.
Right.
But he was like, okay. Do it. You know, then he tried to raise some money and he couldn't raise the money for the particular project, you know, for the project that he was trying to do. And then I didn't hear from him for a while. And then he popped back up saying, oh yeah, I'm in school now, right? Out in Chicago. And they have this grant for students through the Tribeca Film Festival for documentaries. And he wanted to do, so he was going to take a piece of that giant project that he was going to do and do it for this, you know, documentary short that he got money from. So like, I got some money, let's do it. And like, I'll give you, I think you got like 20K, like I'll give you half of it. We can just do this thing. I'm like, all right, cool. So, you know, we went through the process. I was doing Nico at the time, I think. And so I was storyboarding. And Nico was a fucking bitch. And like, I was still early on in my storyboarding career. So like, I was still getting, you know, my feet wet with it. And I was also animating on the side with this documentary. And so, but I got it done, and it did really well. It was to your surprise, and just kind of rode that way. So that was a big one, and it's kind of like taking my career into different places that I didn't expect it to go. You know. Is there anything else that you covered Motor City? Yeah, those are all like you covered all like the landmarks. You know,
right.
The major joints.
So what would you say is your biggest breakthrough in your career, or have you had multiple?
Just like, because it keeps evolving, you know. So it's, you know, just these pivots. You know, you got to pivot because, you know, one, you got to keep the lights on, and also just the shape of the industry keeps evolving. So, you know, and then as you get older, you know, what are your interests? And as you know, this is an art form. You discover stuff about yourself as you're doing it. So, you know, that just influences the kind of work you do and want to do. So when you're first out of school, it's just like, I just got to survive, right? I just need to pay rent. I need the experience. I got nothing on my resume right now except my film, and this is all I got. So, it is also New York too, so it's not exactly like a thriving metropolis of like animation. I think we are 2 years away from that housing market crash or whatever, which just kind of freezes a lot of, you know, expendable.
Which is when I graduated.
Right. So, yeah, so it's just, you know, so it just the landscape changed on us, right?
Yeah.
Kind of, and so New York kind of it wasn't great, but it was something, you know. And there's a lot of artists competing for the same jobs, right? So so I wanted to do 2D. I like drawing. This is why I got into this whole thing in the first place, right? If nothing else, I would be drawing. But I was trying to find animation tests. I tested at a couple of different places, which was like a weird experience. Because back in, I don't know if you do it now. I think you can kind of do it at home. Most people have their own setup, but back then you would schedule a time and you would go to the studio. They had a computer set up for you, and you would spend a morning or the day sitting there doing this test. Get as far as you can with it, and then save the file, and then you leave, and maybe you hear something, maybe you don't, right? And so I did like there's one show called Kappa Mikey, and I did a test for a lot of people I knew were working on that. And then there was for Wonder Pets. So Wonder Pets was After Effects. I had done After Effects for that film. Thanks for Sheridan forcing me out of my comfort zone. But it was character animation. I was like, well, I can animate. I understand how to animate, but I don't really. There's some limitations that I felt working with 2D, so I couldn't quite express myself. So I tried to just, work the best way I could with this thing, right? So I did the test, but when I went into the space and interviewed, I noticed like they had a bunch of Emmys and stuff up, and like the atmosphere of the place, and they're really nice. They had a conversation with me, looked me in the eye. This was a really really nice place to be, right? I don't know if I front faced with anybody of importance at that Kappa Mikey place. With them, they were like, they sat me down and talked about stuff, whatever. So when I got back, did a check in with my parents about just how it's been going, how my job hunting has been proceeding. And, I mentioned that place and just the experience was nice. And so my dad was like, you should write him an email. And he looked at the website and was like, yeah, you should write them an email. So I'm just like, you just didn't, you appreciated them, for just being them. And then like a nice place to be. So I did. I wrote him an email. So, thanks for having me. This was, I've tested at a bunch of different places, and I really enjoyed the experience, even though if you don't pick me, so be it. But just keep doing what you do,
Yeah.
And so that apparently swayed them. Like, it was like on the fence, with a few people, but they were like, we like the cut of your jib, buddy. So get on in here, And so it was great. Like the test was like, but we really like you as a person, which is a big deal. I think that goes, I think a couple of your other folks have talked about that, just working with people who are pleasant and, you can get along with, it goes a long way. And so that got me my first gig. And so for the next 3 years, I worked at Little Airplane, on Wonder Pets, and I think Third and Bird was another show that they got. But it was all After Effects animation. So I wasn't drawing. So I would go to work, do that stuff, but I still had that burning desire to traditionally animate. And so it was all pent up. So like I would go home and I would do my own animation. I would work on stuff that I just, whatever came to mind, I would do it. I also, along the way, which is interesting, how this kind of happens. But I mean, when you're working on the job, there's always talented people around you, right? But at this particular place, there was one animator who was like Disney good. Like he was like, he could draw, and like his stuff was smooth. Like it was amazing. And so I got to stand over his shoulder and study his stuff, and then do stuff on my own and show it to him, and he can give me feedback, which was great. And then there was another cat there who was a storyboard artist, and he was really into anime. And he really liked my animation, and he was like really good. So like he would just check in with me and just give me feedback, tell me stuff to watch, and I think he worked on a film for himself, and he had me do some animation for it. He did a lot of it himself, but he let me like cut my feet on it. I just wanted some stuff to like build a reel,
Yeah.
And so when the last it was all fast forwarding, but also the thing at Little Airplane was that the entire production happened in-house. Right. So from the voice records to like we can watch an episode move around the room. There was 3 floors, and each floor was a whole team. So like there was a design team in one wing on one side of the room, so you can see the pre-visuals happening, right? And then the episode moved to storyboarding, and it was 2 storyboard artists, and they were at the end of the row. And then once they moved from there, it went to like layout, and that guy was next to me. And then it was animation. The animation was like wrapped around the rest of the room. And I think the team had like 6 or 7 plus a lead. And then there was an editor who sat in the room as well. And so, everything was at different phases. So like I would be animating on one, they would be doing a storyboard review for one, and then there'd be an edit behind me. Or then when they would do animation reviews, we'd all gather around the edit bay and talk, and they would hand out notes. The actors would come in and hang out in like a waiting area on the couch and kind of walk around and like, hang out and talk to us. And then we could go in for that. If you wanted to like sit in on their voice records, we could. They also had a live orchestra, because that show was a basically like a mini opera. So like everything was all right? And so
This is
they had a small, yeah, God, yeah, it's triggering. Like,
sorry.
they had musicians come in, and so like for the final record, we could all come in and watch them do the final, record. And so, the writers were in the building too. So like, we could see just the whole workings of a production from start to finish. That was really cool. Excuse me. Really cool because a lot of shows are shipping shows, so you don't see like the meat and potatoes of stuff happening. You see the pre-production, you make like the end of it. But with this show, we could see like every single thing. So that was dope. But I was frustrated creatively because I wasn't drawing. So when the Third and Bird finished, they had like a small project that had some traditional animation. And it was completely traditionally animated. So they needed a small team to kind of animate on it. And so naturally they picked the Disney guy. He was good. And they also held a test to see if they could fill, if anybody around could, like already on staff, could fill the next spot. And so I had been like grinding at it for like the past 3 years. So I had a stuff. And again, I took the test. And they were like, "Oh shit, you can animate." I was like, "Yeah, like this show, I don't really,
I'm not new to this. I'm true to this."
Yeah, exactly. And so they were like, "Oh," so they kept me on to work on that. And so they also gave me something for the portfolio. And then, the whole studio, when they stopped doing production, like that group of friends that I had built, they all kind of stuck with the After Effects animation. And so there was another studio doing it, but I didn't want to do that anymore. So I kind of had to make a pivot, so it was basically starting over again, so I had that comfortable, portfolio of stuff, but I didn't want to do it. So, so I had to kind of go back out into the world and like feel around, and try to find more work as a 2D animator. And so there was a lot of random stuff in there. And I would also do some random After Effects too, just to keep lights on, but it was Curious Pictures. They're not there anymore, but I think they used to do like Celebrity Deathmatch, and they used to do a lot of stop motion stuff. They had a traditional wing, and they did Codename Kids Next Door, I think, at one point. So they had some pilots, and I had a couple of friends who were doing stuff for like animation for like some of the pilots that they were producing, and so I was able to get in on a few of those. Like I did one, and they liked me, and so when they had another one, they brought me back, and so I was able to kind of build up a rapport in there with them, and that is also where I met Kimson for the first time, and so like from there, met him, another black dude, was like, this is dope, right? And he there was also a Titmouse had just moved to New York, and now they're like, this place is doing traditional animation, like this is dope, like this is what I want to do. They're all day hired 2D animators. They have a team of them. They're doing fun shit. They're like, I want to get in on this. And I had a few friends that were already in there, and I think they had like a welcome party to welcome to New York kind of thing. So I went to that, and I was just trying to meet everybody who's hiring around here, who I need to know. Like, I did that, but nothing like came of it until I met Kimson, and we were working on Eureka. And it was only a handful of animators on that. But when we finished, he was like, "I'm going over to Titmouse to work on something with another friend of ours, Kevin." And so it was a small project. It was like a Nike commercial, I think. And it was just the three of us on it. We were using Titmouse's space. So when I was there, I remember the experience because I think they were getting ready to move. So they didn't have enough furniture for us. And so I was on this desk, and I think the desk came up to my nipples, right? Like when I was sitting in the chair, but the chair was like a dining room chair. Like it didn't have wheels, and it was really uncomfortable. But it was really it sucked. But So for the length of that project, I was sitting in this uncomfortable chair. But I was in there. But I was in there early, getting out late. Just showing my face, and then like when I would need a break, I would walk around into every single room and what's up? Who are you? Like and mingle and shoot the shit, right? And then I got to know the hiring manager for that studio, and so when my project with Kevin was ending, I was shooting the shit with the hiring manager, and he was like, so. Do you want to work here? Which one do you want to work on? They had I think they were working on Motor City at the time. When I was seeing Motor City, that looked amazing. That looked like this is why I'm here. This action. It was fun drawings, and I got you get to really let loose on that show. So it sounds dope. And they also had what did they have? Super Jail. It was the first season or second season of Super Jail that was about to happen. So. Some spots were going to be open. So I took a test for both. They're both fine. But I think I got the Motor City one, which was like perfect for me. So then I got in with Titmouse. And then from Titmouse, it was just, project after project of animating. So I was like, I made it. I did it.
Yeah. I did it, Mama. I did it.
Yeah.
So do you have any like personal projects that you're interested in producing?
Yes. That's the short answer is yes. I've pitched a bit and gone through that process. And I'm still open to the idea of pitching and working on, running the show. But I also have ideas I just kind of want to create. I just want to make it. I don't want to have to worry about it fitting in a box.
Convincing people.
Yeah, and convincing people that that my idea is great, or whatever. I don't think I have the clout to just walk into a room and like, this is what I want to make. Give me money, and they're like, "We got you, buddy." Like, I ain't there yet. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I do have projects that I want to make. In another one of those transitional periods, I do want to make a martial arts film. Like I think that's just part of just to kind of encapsulate everything that I am. And so when Motor City had a bunch of fight scenes, and they had their fight scene animators, right? And so I was like, I want to get into like those guys always got the fight scenes. So I was like, I want to be one of those dudes, but they kind of had their shit carved out. So like, how do I like break? I got to show them that I can do it, right? Any of the changes that I've made in my career, I had to kind of show that I could do what I'm trying to do. So so on my own time, I was taking one of the fight scenes from like one of the shows, and I would animate it on my own just to say I can do this fight scene too, right? And then also I was like, well, I want to do my own thing. I want to make a fight scene of my own, like with my own characters, with my OCs. So,
my OCs. The lingo.
And I was like, all right, and how do I shoot this? And then I realized like, oh shit, I had my sensibilities, but they were really rudimentary, like learning how to stage stuff and and then what's important. So I had done this like fight scene, storyboarded it out. And then I also at the same time, CTN was just starting out in California. And so a few of my friends, I think Ian and I had already leaked out and like moved over to Cartoon Network out here. And I think he might have been, I think it might be before Steven Universe. Or simultaneously. I came out of CTN, showed some of my storyboards to a guy, and he just like ripped them apart, which was great. I needed it, but it was like, it was like, oh, I don't know shit about storyboarding, or there's a lot to it that I had never considered. And also, in that visit, I also ran into an animator. His name is gonna escape me. It's on a shelf over there. I can see the shelf. I can't make out the book. But this guy was an animator at DreamWorks from the traditional days all the way up through. It might be there, but he did all the fight scenes. just for DreamWorks. I was like, that's your job? And like you just animate fight scenes and come up with them and animate. I'm like, I didn't. Well, one, that's dope.
Yes.
Two, I didn't know you could like carve out an entire career, that spans like a decade, just being the guy that, that sat in the room and just like, you need to fight, I got you, come back in like 2 weeks. I got, and so that kind of like blew my mind. But also like, okay, well, now I need to learn how to tell a story. And also another thing that was happening at the time is I was becoming, I wasn't becoming old, but I was getting older. I was like early 30s, maybe, late 20s, early 30s. I was becoming like the old guy at the studio, looking around. There was a lot of young, fresh, bright-eyed talent coming through, and I was, and just it was like only a handful of us, older guys around. So, my dad was like, "Where are all the old people at in your industry? Like, where are they going?" Like, I was like, "Well, they're in California, and they're probably doing like pre-production or like storyboarding or something else. They're not animating because a lot of animation was being done overseas." And I was, I was just seeing how like the landscape of things, and like as an animator, there's how to survive long term in that time period. It was like, how do I do that? How do I stay afloat? And I also, I was listening to Everett talking about like being an animator and just realized, just like you're not the best, in other words, but what you're doing, you can fit right in that like that sweet spot. And then there was some geniuses that I work with, and I was like, God damn, you're really fucking good. I just don't have the energy like to put in anymore to be like that good. I realized that there's like a limitation to like but it isn't bad, and I think I have found like a nice sweet spot for what I can do, and also kind of is appealing. So it's like I started thinking big picture, right? So stories. I learn what a story is and how to tell a story, and that became like my next pivotal journey. So in doing that, I was like, I want to do a fight scene. I want to do a kung fu scene. That story evolved into a film, and then became a world, and it became this thing. And like I thought about pitching it, but I also kind of just want to make it. I don't want it to be. I don't know what the audience is beyond myself and other kung fu enthusiasts who also like cartoons. I don't want to have to. When I've learned in pitching, it's like, can we? I came with an idea once, and they were like, can you make it a kid? And I was, because our audience are kids. I'm like, all right, well, this isn't exactly what I had in mind, but all right, let me flip it and, from a kid perspective and see how that goes. And so, which is fine. It makes sense because they're trying to sell a product and they have an audience that they're trying to appease. But for me, my sensibilities aren't always fit in those categories. And so until that space opens up, I think also everyone was talking about like, more YA, properties and things that kind of appeal to a broader audience become more mainstream. I think my ideas kind of fit more in that space, so whenever that becomes like a place where it's a viable place to kind of live in and produce work, I think until then, I'm just going to have to do it on my own. So all that to say, I have ideas. I have one idea that I was pitching to that's more of a kids friendly idea. I also have one that the film that I'm making, I'm working on. And also I've been talking about, how do it on my own and learn how, for the job that I want, I prepare myself for the job that I want. All right. And so when I just got my first directing gig, and that, I think being somewhat qualified for that was from, from all the storyboarding gigs I've had, but also just on my own making this film, like I've learned story. I've tweaked the story a gajillion times as I'm trying to figure out like, character development, how to move characters through a space, how to build to something, how to make that climax hit, and reworking the story over and over again kind of it just helps me like flex that muscle, and then with the film, I got to a space where I had written a script. I had never written a script before. I mean, I have, just for school projects, but not like, formatted, thinking about all this stuff visually and all that stuff. So I was doing that. And then I had a table read with some friends who were actors. And then I got to hear it. And then I also did like a soft record and just to kind of coach them, and also it sounds one way in my head, but then when they say it, it doesn't sound the way it does in my head. How do I communicate that to them? You know, and they're asking questions that I hadn't about the characters that I hadn't even thought about. Like, oh shit, that's a really good book. So these are things that I'm learning to like be cognizant of, as a filmmaker and as a storyteller. And if I want to at some point be running a ship, or help somebody else tell their stories, I need to understand all these processes. So in doing this, it's also in one way it's exercising this need to tell a story and get it out of me, but also it's helping me prepare myself professionally for the stuff that's coming down the road. So yes, long story, long. I do have ideas that I want to eventually get out there, but it's funny, like I don't know what the finish line looks like. There wasn't, beyond initially getting me into this industry was to become a Disney animator. But once I kind of moved that to the side and kind of like just kind of went through the flow of where everything's taking me, I don't know what like the finish line looks like. I know like Ian wanted to be a show creator. Like that's something that he kind of drove him, throughout college. And you could see him focus, like he structured his education around, getting to that point. Like, it would be great if I got there, but I don't know if it's like an ultimate destination for me. Yeah. Like, I don't think if I didn't have a show of my very own that my career would be a failure. Right. I think,
So if you're ever interested in doing the 2D, 3D toon shaded hybrid like they do overseas, I got you. I got 3D.
That's funny, yo. I was just thinking about that because
that's what I did when I worked in Korea, because I worked on Family Guy. all the cars in Family Guy in Cleveland show are 3D. So
yeah, and I was thinking about it like from just a producing your own films with a minimal budget. Yeah, like it's done, right? And so I'm like, well, I want to do a fight scene. Fight scenes usually require a lot of camera angles, but like who wants to do all those backgrounds, right? And if you want to get funky, maybe 1 or 2 shots and do some, rotations or whatever. Like drawing that shit's gonna be a nightmare. But if you build these spaces in like working on 3D shows, I'm realizing like that you can free up your camera when you have a 3D space. But if I can, so I was taking a class in Blender when I was working at Nickelodeon because I had free time. And so I was like, this is beautiful. Like you can build this
grease
stuff.
Pencil.
Grease pencil, and like that combination of things. Yeah, that was really dope. I was thinking this too as I was preparing myself for this interview. I was like, when I get this 3D stuff, I'm gonna be hitting you up because I'm gonna learn how to do it.
I got you already.
Somebody who knows,
already. We were coworkers on a Black production. Like, how did it feel like, working on a Black production that we can't talk about yet? And like, what did you learn directing?
That shit was dope, right? Like, I don't know if you've done it before, but like for me, it was something I didn't know I needed. It's like when I first moved out here to California, we moved to Burbank, and my wife is Black, and so and we're coming from New York, New Jersey. Our friend. We have a multicultural friend group, but there's Black people around. We have within our immediate vicinity, right? And so when we got out here, we're making it work. She had to quit her job. Well, she wanted to quit her job, so so she was home a lot, and it was just the 2 of us, and we would go out just at random times and just do things, just explore, get used to California. And we didn't realize that we were missing Black people until, God, I think we were just out, we were going to go get, like before marijuana was legal out here, right? So you had to go to the fake doctor and you had to get you had to do like the fucking interview and tell them what's wrong with you and get a whatever. So on our way to do that, there was a Black couple coming towards us, and we both had a moment. We was like, a couple, and then like we just looked at each other. And we had that, the black nod, and then we giggled because we knew we were both there to get this stupid weed card, and we kept it moving. But after that, I think we both realized we aren't around. We just hadn't realized. We were so busy getting used to this new space that we hadn't realized that we had also we just moved to like the whitest area.
Yeah.
In like LA. And so after that, so it's just something that was in our brain space, thinking about it, right? But then we get on this production, and it's something that I just have forgotten. You don't need to code switch in meetings. When you're talking about something in a script, you can reference something that we all know and understand, and it just clicks. And I was like, oh yeah, that was so. It was so free. It hits you in the heart, man. Like it's amazing. Especially when you haven't had it for so long, and that's what I was saying. Thinking back to growing up in PG County, being away from it for so long that I just appreciated something like home when you're around, your brethren, and it feels good to be able to kind of just let your hair down and not have to realize how much you've been code switching your whole professional career until you don't have to, right? And I admire that stuff where they just come in and unapologetically like, no, this is like it was a beautiful thing. And so like my first handout was with the supervising director and the showrunner and everybody else, the three black people in the meeting. And everybody else was like muted and cameras off. So it was just the three of us just chopping it up. I was like, this is dope. Oh my God. You just cursed. Like what? Like it just felt like a different space. And I was like, this is wonderful. And so, and it's funny, like, and this goes back to like, these different phases of my career, right? As I'm evolving and changing and thinking about what's important too, right? Because, if now that I've got like the dearth of experience, my resume allows me to kind of like, I'm open. I mean, I'm available. I can do work. I'm appealing to a lot of different spaces, right? Yeah. So with that said, what do I want to do? If I have the option to choose it, right? If if all the necessities are taken care of, and I've got a set of things in front of me that I can choose from, which is more important to me. Yeah. And so I had I was crushed. I don't want to say I was crushed, but like I was burnt the fuck out after Transformers Earth's Spark. And so I needed a break. I took like 2 months and I just started making lists of things that I liked. Yeah. Just trying to just soul search, like, what do I like to do? What do I like to watch? What are the things that hit me emotionally, storytelling wise, visually, all that stuff. There's a lot of black stuff on on that list, Yeah. And I was just thinking like, that would be really cool. Just throwing it out there. It'd be really nice to work on something, just with something black maybe, Yeah. And then this project came along and it kind of fit my sensibilities, but it was also black. And I was like, whoa. And it was also a promotion. It was like a directing job. So I'm like, all right, this seems like the universe is here for me. And that first handout was like, man, I didn't know that I needed this, and so any black person I talk to in the industry now, I'm like, I wish that for you, Yes. Like, I wish all of you could get into a space like that, where you don't have to, like I said, you don't have to code switch. You just, you get, every, like there's a language that we speak with each other, that just feels like home. And to be able to do that at work, it was just really like, it just felt good, So, I mean, not that every show I have to work on needs to be like that, but and so it's also generally the studio experience has been like a big deal. Like there's like, I don't know how this worked for you, but like there are certain projects where you make friends. Like there's some jobs you go in and you kind of just do the work and everybody's kind of in it, whatever. But there's other jobs where like you have everybody's phone number on the production when you leave, or you can hit up any single one of them, Like, so there's, certain shows where like it starts from the top too. It starts top down where they create like an atmosphere where it feels more familial and less like we're just all just punching a clock.
Yeah.
And so I think all in all, I prefer that kind of experience when where we can all kind of like build off of each other, and there's like an open communication and openness with one another.
Yeah.
And but also Black. So we can, like, that would be dope. But yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I had like a woman's intuition moment, but like the first time I reached out to you in Slack, and was like, "Hey, Black man, like, I just need to talk to you right quick. You're new to the production. You're another Black person. Let me, talk to you right quick." You like saved me from like wasting time doing some work, and I was just like, "Yes, my Black intuition saved me from like being pissed off because I was about to do something, and you were like, 'Oh, I'm not even done yet.' I'm like, 'What?' Like, okay, thank you for letting me know that."
It was that it was an experience. You know what I mean? Like that time was definitely one of those like, come to Jesus, we are all in this together, like, shows and moments.
Yeah.
And so it was all hands on deck, everybody just like grinding it out together. And I've been on a few of those, for sure. They don't get any easier. But yeah, no, it was. It's nice when you can look across and you lock eyes with somebody and you don't even have to say anything. You just know. And you don't even know we're just doing over Slack. Like there's still a subtext there, and you can be like,
right.
She understands.
And when you talk about like how we can just like communicate with each other and know, like for this Black production, that's why like our showrunner and our supervising director like empowered me to kind of be a cultural expert, because I started in production and was in all those meetings. But then when I transitioned to be an assistant editor, I still like went to all the design meetings and stuff like that. And then I still stayed on as a person who went into all the voice recordings. And so like, sometimes they'll be like, "Oh, look up, the landscape of this city that the show is based in." And, because for some reason, like, we just know, like, if we look up the reference images, this is the right one and this is the wrong one. I don't know how we know, but we just know Blackness and be like, that's not the reference image. And then like to have like some like, people who are like white and Asian, I just feel like sometimes they just don't type the word Black in before the other words in the Google search. So I'll just be like, let me just do this for them. Right quick. Like I remember communicating with our art director, like, our showrunner asked me to like find reference images of like mac and cheese. And so with our art director, I was like, because he was like very sensible, but like, I was just like, don't put breadcrumbs on this. Like, here's the reference. Don't add nothing. This is the reference. Like, we don't be doing that.
No, I took care of it for you. Don't even, because you're going to look it up. There's going to be a lot of variety, not the mac and cheese we're going for. Yeah, okay. Nothing wrong with yours, but it ain't wrong. That's not what we're doing.
And then I remember once, like, I was in Shot Grid, and one of our production managers, like, she had labeled something like a hair cap or something. I'm like, it's called a bonnet. just like, this is important for the cultural reference. So
yeah, when I'm looking for it, that's what I'm gonna type in. Right? I'm not gonna look for a hair cap. That's not what I'm looking for.
So just thought I don't want to, but it's about it.
I mean, there was a lot of that, educating the other artists on like the significance of this particular moment in the script. Like, this is what's happening right here. This is why this is what they're making fun of. This is what the satire, of this moment is, and so, it's interesting, like having that kind of conversation. It was such a whirlwind. Because it's my first time directing, so there was a lot of downloading to get used to from that standpoint. But then also like it being a Black show, so like I felt uniquely qualified to explain some of these things, and they also some of the artists genuinely had questions about like, what's happening here? I'm like, I got you. Here, let me break it down for you, which is also funny too. And I would do some drawings in the margin to explain some stuff. I'm like, I can't believe I'm drawing this right now. Like, this is my life. This is where I'm doing it with no reference too. I can just draw this down on top of my head. This is
right.
Look where I have come as an artist. So yeah, no, it was a
I have
beautiful
come to the mountaintop.
yeah, you know, oh God. So I think so it's interesting. Like so that is definitely important. Like I'm definitely looking for opportunities like that.
Yeah.
But also has to align with my sensibilities too. You
Yeah.
know, I can't like you talking about doing the Cleveland show. Like I think I would lose my mind working on a typical like comedy show. You know, like that there's really like a basic 3-camera setup. You know, it's really flat. It's really the line drawings are so tight and so.
I definitely only watched that show to find the stuff that I worked on to put in my drawer.
I haven't watched a lot of it recently, but I mean, there was a time when I did watch a lot of it. But just like from a production and working on a standpoint, I think it would. I mean, there's a lot of like we watch Big Mouth and we we laugh at it hysterically. But I couldn't. The style of the show just feels kind of not my jam, and so it's important that whatever I'm working on fits my sensibilities and pushes me in a direction. So like with being older in this career in this field, like I used to fill sketchbooks up like crazy. I have a stack of them. Like I would just be constantly drawing in and trying to improve. But nowadays, I spend so much time doing everything else that I use work to kind of like help me push my skills forward, even when I'm not working on my own personal film or whatever. So
get paid to push your skills.
Yeah, and so like so I try to pick projects that kind of like make me stronger and send me in a direction that I like that I want to go. So I don't want to backtrack. I want to work with people that are going to help me get better. So that's like really important. So like this project, in addition to it being a promotion, but the supervising director was, I didn't know it at the time, but he was, the stuff that he taught me while working on the job is about storytelling, and how to visually tell stories. And that stuff was like, like another light bulb kind of clicked for me. And it kind of also affected how I view stuff now. I'm looking at something, I'm noticing patterns and things of that nature when they're telling stories. And it's like, that's what I need. And as long as I still have the energy, hopefully forever, to like, to kind of work on these projects where I'm kind of pushing myself and grinding. So it was like it was while it was really hard, I gleaned a lot from it. Learning and also being around Black folks. So definitely thankful for the experience. So,
and sometimes the carryover of like being in production and hopping in those meetings, I was still hopping at as assistant director because like our supervising director and our art director was like really excellent on how they would explain things. So I'd just be like, wow, like I don't do this, but this is interesting.
Right. Yeah, and just kind of understanding. I mean, it all does affect you, maybe not super directly, but you kind of see the process, and then so like when you're doing what you do, you can kind of like you can see where it's faulty, you can see where it's a little broken, and how you might either have to adjust how you handle what you're doing, or you can just kind of make suggestions like, hey, just tweak this a little bit, so that way it just makes the process a little smoother, So
So I have a fun question from doing my research. What is your favorite Crumbl cookie?
Oh yeah, my wife was just telling me about. She was like, "You owe me for this," and because see, one day at her one, she's now a costume designer, and so she's on set a lot, and they brought in Crumbl one day, and she was like, "You don't even understand," and then so she brought one home, and it just kind of blew my mind. I was like, "This exists? Like this? What?" And it's like they're all over the country. Like I didn't know. Like they're right around the corner this whole time. And they deliver too, which is dangerous shit. God, that's a good question. Ooh. I haven't tried them all yet, so every week they change them up. So far, the snickerdoodle was pretty damn good. I love a good snickerdoodle. Actually, I don't know if I'm a weirdo, but I know people generally don't like oatmeal raisin cookies, but I do, and they have a really good one.
I mean, y'all have a tribe somewhere, like.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, there's dozens of us, dozens. So, there's
I just be like sad, like, man, I thought that was chocolate chip.
Right? I'm like, I hate it when they put chocolate chips on the oatmeal cookies. I'm like, what are y'all doing with this nonsense? Get this shit out of here. So, what was it? Oh, this week they've got a goddamn cookie dough cookie. So it's like I don't know what the fuck kind of cookie it is, but it's got like chunks of cookie dough on top of it, and that sounds amazing. What is today? Friday, so I only have 2 days before it's gone, so I'm probably going to order it tonight and sit myself down with some Colombo.
What is your favorite pastime? Well, you kind of just did one, but like, what are your favorite pastimes to do with your wife?
Oh shit. We do a lot of stuff. We got anything, really. But this one thing we used to do in Burbank. We used to, like, on random. They had this place, Backhouse. It was it was like attached to a volcano, right? I don't think it's there anymore. But they used to have a late night happy hour. So we went bug wild when we got out here. Well, as far as we're concerned, right?
Right.
So it'll be a Wednesday night or a Tuesday night, and we were just like sitting around and doing shit. So we would just like go down there. They're open till 2, and they had like happy hour and drinking, and they had usually some sports games on, or and then they had like a kitchen, and there was somebody like back there grilling up some delicious shit. So we would just go down, hang out at the bar until it closed, like 2 in the morning, on like a Tuesday. And so that was like part of our just getting used to LA kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that was always fun. Do a lot of brunching. The brunches are damn whenever we can. It's a little harder to do it now because we're just older, and the mimosas hit harder. It's like it just ruins our afternoon.
Right. This is no longer fun.
Yeah, not at all. Shit, man. Yeah, we watch stuff. We just sit on the couch and just watch stuff together. Shit. We used to do a lot of fashion shows together. Like, cause she would cover a lot of stuff when she was in New York. So she was getting into the she had a blog that she used to do. Kind of, she does a website now, but she used to cover a lot of events and do fashion stuff and celebrity stuff. And she's kind of phased out the celebrity stuff, but she still kind of is in tune with the fashion stuff, and she makes a lot of things on her own as well. Yeah. And so we used to go to a lot of events, and so we were getting into the New York Fashion Week stuff in New York. We were like periphery, but we were slowly working our way into some of the main things. Yeah. When we got out here, we tried to do it out here a little bit, but the scene is extremely different out here versus New York. What else? I don't know. We do a lot of stuff together, I don't know if it's necessarily a favorite. It's just experiences, man.
Yeah, when you said that y'all got buck wild, at least according to what y'all do, I remember this black dude, I don't know if it was a tweet or a Facebook status, but he was like, no matter how wild things get, I ain't doing cocaine. like, that's where I draw the line.
Yeah. We haven't even come close to that line. Right. Well, no, we haven't.
That one time at band camp.
Whatever, man. Like, honestly, we have we do normal couple things. I guess. Right. We don't have any kids. We got a dog now, but like besides that, we just the world is our oyster, So whenever we feel like doing something, we just kind of just pick up and do it. And it's just fun. And usually it's fun because we're doing it together. And lately, what was really cool, because I was in the I don't know what it's called, the Emmy Academy, or it was with the Emmy group, like for like the judging, and they used to do for your consideration events. And so when we first got to I think we were still in Burbank when I started it. But we were doing the for your consideration events. So we would go, watch a screening, and then listen to the Q&A, and then we would just go and eat all the free food and just people watch. And so like that was a really good time. Sometimes we would spot a celebrity, and sometimes we get to walk up and talk to some folks that we were actually really big fans of. And so that was always cool. I mean, they used to do it on event, like our whole calendar was littered with like events, like once the season started. Like, and so that was always something fun that we look forward to. Just kind of like, hey, that's that dude from that thing over there, right there. Look, you know, so it was always cool. That stuff was fun, just to kind of be in the room. And it was also like, you know, two of the 5 to 10 black people in the room, you know, white folks. So it was always kind of just the 2 brown people standing off to the side with our like, you know, African like Ankara print like shirts and stuff on. Just, you know, might as well be wearing a dashiki and one of those hats, you know, just like standing off in the corner, like eating, you know, cauliflower or whatever, and looking at the room like, yo, like, you met somebody. And you know, we definitely stood out, but that was always something fun to do. So, you know, some of the California stuff we've done.
Yeah. A random question that I thought of from like interviewing you, because it's, you know, you mentioned that you've like watched my videos like because I feel like sometimes people think that my videos are just like for like little kids or people trying to break into the industry, and I had made a status about like they're for you too, like because you know sometimes you don't know who your peers are or whatever. What is the benefit of watching my videos for you?
Yeah, that's funny. I was thinking about that today too. I was like, they have been cathartic is the word, but like it feels good to see that there's a lot of us out there. One, like representation matters, right? You know, and I've also on several occasions been online and seeing like a group of animators or black, you know, like, you know, just hanging out together, you know. Like these guys are the you know, like the who's who of like you know, black animation, right? And all this I want to be at that table with these people. I'm just getting out here and getting myself in this world. And so as I'm now becoming more established, like I think the first thing I did when I got out here was like I just want to meet people in general. I need people to know who I am, that I'm out here, that I can do the work. You know, it was just expanding my network as quickly and broadly as possible, right? And then and now that I've gotten that part out of the way, now it's like I want to hone in on some of these black creators and professionals in the industry and that are doing it. But you know, you only see like it's like a dozen, or not even a dozen, maybe like 6 or 7. You know, like, you know, you see your Bruce Smiths, you see your you know, there's like a couple of them, right?
Floyd Norman.
I think you just interviewed one of the
Frank
guys.
Abney.
And so like, you know, it's like it's like it's like a handful of them that you kind of see the names over and over again. But watching your channel and the videos, it's like this, like, whoa, the network is so much bigger, you know. There's so many more people out here doing it and killing it, and so it feels good seeing it, and also that it's out there, and it's also just like right there, you know. Like I can, you know, it's not as you know, because some of those guys aren't in the field. Like I'm not a 3D animator. I'm never going to be in that space. So like, there's no chance that I'm just going to be like at the water cooler and they come walking over like, yo, you know. So, but it just, you know, there's still a lot of other people out there that you can come across, and they're doing their thing, and also they're also cognizant of like being around other brown people and wanting that experience and cherishing that experience. So yeah, when you see it in your interviews, it's like, you know, this is cool. And so like, you know, whenever I hear something, you know, something black is happening, I'm trying to like, you know, support it and check it out. You know, sometimes it isn't always my jam, but yeah, I just watched My Dad the Bounty Hunter thing, and so but I knew that Everett, I mean, I follow him on social media, but then I knew that he existed. But I didn't know to what extent. I didn't really check out his resume. I just knew he was a brown dude on online, and he's got, you know, he does things in the industry. And then I found out some friends of mine were working on the show, and so I was like, let me check it out. You know, it's a black show. There's some black folks working on it, black dude running it. So let me go ahead and check it out. I was like, oh, this is dope. You know, And then I was like, well, now I got to know about this guy. So then I watched your interview, and I was like, don't interview an interview. And then sure enough, there it is. Like, like an hour and 40 minutes, I get to deep dive into this guy.
Yeah.
So that's one of the benefits of what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, if I want to get a deep dive on who I'm working with or would love to work with, or, you know, you've already got an hour and a half with them. So, also too, on the project, we just finished. Like, you had done a interview with Ree, and so I was like, let me go ahead and check that out. And so I got a little insight on the Ree, and like I was like, oh shit, you know, this whole time, this whole damn time. And then I live in North Hollywood. This dude was up the block, you know, killing it. I was like, you know, this whole fucking time, and then talking to him, you know, just, you know, through work and realizing that we had kind of like crossed paths a little bit. You know, I think he had done some stuff on Venture Brothers at some point. And so yeah, like it's just, you know, it's cool to know they're out there and to hear their stories, and you know, it's just reassuring, I guess. So yeah, and then, you know, after that, I'm in a totally different space now, but like, you know, so this, especially when I think I started really watching your stuff when we were working together on this last project, but that also came from me kind of having a come to Jesus moment, like, what am I doing? Where am I going? Let's drive this shit somewhere. And getting on that show and being in a room with Black folks, I'm like, oh, this is a feeling that I didn't know I needed. And now, you know, how do I build on that? And then you've got an archive of brown people out there doing it, and it was like, where y'all working at? Like, let me find out what y'all doing. Let me that's it. So I can potentially work with more of you, you know. So yeah, I think that's like, it feels like the next evolution of things, you know, is just ingesting more content. You've created a space that just puts it all in one place, so we're all there. You know, interviews and backstories and skill sets and personality, and it's like a perfect place to kind of like just like, you know, you did an interview with, I wrote her name down, Melanie.
Goolsby.
Yeah, and so after that interview, I hit her up and I was just like, I really dug the interview you just did, and it was dope. I even bought one of those like sweatshirts. Like, I was like, that's dope. I love that shit. That's fucking fantastic. So I went and bought one of those joints. So like, yeah, it's just, you know, and it was cool that you had Lyndon on there. I hadn't really like, I met him at Sundance, and it was like, Sundance has like an event that's just Black specific. And so like the detective was that. So like Sundance happens in like the ski village. Right. And it's just like this hill and just buildings on both sides, and it's mostly white. But there's like, it was one Black event that had like an event every night, and it was at the bottom of the hill. In this one space, like off to the side. So I went to that, and I kind of was in the space, and I was like, what am I doing here? Like, it didn't feel like, I don't know. It was just interesting. It felt like everybody knew each other. I'm like, how did y'all know each other? But then I was kind of hanging out in the back, and then Linda was just hanging out in the back too, and we just started just chatting. And then I was like, I'm in animation. He's like, oh shit, me too. And I was like, what the fuck are you doing here? And so, you know, he had a screening. He wasn't at Sundance. He was at, there's like another festival that's happening. Like, it's like not Sundance, or I forget what it's called. But it's like the antithesis of Sundance films, and it was dope. But I just kind of latched myself onto him for the event. But yeah, we out there, man. And so I don't know. So yeah, so watching in your interviews, like, it's just cool to kind of like see all these people that are out here doing their thing, and from different walks of life and different aesthetics and interests, and you know, so there's something for everybody. You know, I think that also was a big deal too for me, was because my sensibilities are so broad and not so like cartoon focused. I don't know, like, you know, I guess it's like a thing when you think about, like, growing up, I don't look back and think, oh, I remember that show, I used to love it. I mean, there are shows I would watch growing up that I did enjoy, but I don't have this like, I couldn't write like a love letter to like these shows and how they formed me, you know. Fresh Prince, yes, I could write a thesis statement, like essay on like just how that formed me, but like, you know, not cartoons. Cartoons didn't quite have effect on me growing up. So, you know, when people wax poetically about, you know, all these shows they grew up watching and how they want to redo these things, and like I don't really have that same connection point, and so that can kind of make you feel like a bit of an outsider when it comes to like when you're living in this space of like, you know, animation and storytelling and so forth. And so, you know, when I think about storytelling, it doesn't always fit in that, like, you know, every episode, let's see what our heroes get into today. You know, I think about, you know, thinking like, how can I make you feel something at the end of this thing? I want you to walk away. I want you to binge it, one, and then when you walk away, when it's over, you feel like this emptiness inside because it's gone. Like all these characters that you were just like, you know, the feeling where you just sit on the couch and you've just absorbed something, and when it's over, you're just like, now what do I do with my life? I got to do something. Like, you know, like I got to go do something. You know, like usually those kinds of films or stories, those are the kind of stuff that I like to be in. I would like to be involved with, and I think we're kind of getting there with the industry. You know, like but yeah, so like there was a long time where I just kind of felt like I didn't quite resonate with that kind of stuff. But now, like you said, when I look at your site and all these people, they're in the business, but they also come from these different spaces, and you know, and it's like, you know, I can see that the world is bigger. You know, help you see the world is bigger. You know, which is, you know, representation matters, right? So
yes, it does. So, if someone was producing a documentary about you, what things would you want them to highlight outside of your work in animation?
Family life. You know, how extensive and funny and crazy my family is. Just that I have a gazillion other things that I like to get into. You know, like I bowl, I roller skate, I, you know, play the drums now. That's the new instrument of the jour. Just I don't know, cover my wife too, because she does some amazing stuff too. Like what she's into, like how her journey, like she's started out writing and wanted to be a writer, and then went into corporate training, which is completely not what she wants to do. And her also having that grind on the side as she's been trying to like find that space, and then coming out here and us together learning that she needs to be doing costume design. We went to see Ruth Carter talk like before she won for Black Panther, and so we were just like to talk about it, and them saying you got to have a love of story and a love of clothes and storytelling through clothes. And she was like, and we both kind of like, you need to be doing this, and her watching her get to that space now where she's doing it, it's pretty fucking dope.
Nice.
What else? Yeah, and just that's outside of my career. So yeah, I think that's it for the outside of the career part. The career part is nuts though. It's interesting, like the doors that kind of open when, you know, you're ready for them, you know, and you can like walk through them. Like having Kimson come through in my life and get me into Titmouse, and then also Kimson's the one to taught me how to do sheet timing, and then but that just had to happen at a really specific time, and then that's led to, you know, all this work and all these credits and all that stuff. So yeah, it's just really people you meet, man. Now I'm here, I'm talking to you, and it's all this shit is nuts, man. I didn't foresee any of this when I was in school, you know.
Right.
Where was this road going to take me? Where am I going to end up? So just kind of just enjoy the road. I think the theme of that whole documentary was let's just fucking enjoy the journey. You know what I mean? It'll go where it goes. Know? Don't worry about it.
You got to be comfortable with that.
Yeah. Yep. Just lean into the process. It'll get there eventually.
So where can people follow you on the socials?
Fuck.
I have it right here if you need help.
Yeah. What am I?
Twitter is BrewTunes.
There you go.
Instagram is Brew Stuff.
Brew Stuff. That's right. Yeah, let them know. I don't really cultivate a following on there. I'm usually just in the background, just like liking stuff. So, but you know, I'm on there.
So I would like to thank you for allowing me to highlight you. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for doing what you do. And I'm glad to be a part of it. I'm glad to be another face on there to help somebody else know that It's possible. You can do it.
You can do it. So to everyone out there, I want you to like so I know it's real. Comment and tell me how you feel. Subscribe to Citadel and sign up for post notifications to show your zeal. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.
Word.